The silent smile. The old train station, hidden within the heart of a bustling city, was an odd, quiet corner of the world where time seemed to slow down. People walked past it every day, rushing to catch their trains, their busy lives forcing them to pay no mind to the small details. Yet, there was one thing that never went unnoticed: a solitary figure sitting on a wooden bench by the platform, just beside the tracks. The station attendant, a man whose name nobody seemed to know, was a constant presence. Every day, without fail, he sat there with a gentle smile, his eyes twinkling as he greeted every passing stranger. He never spoke a word, just a smile. Sometimes, he would tilt his head ever so slightly, as if acknowledging something that was hidden beneath the surface, something that no one else could see. For years, people came and went, their lives woven together in ways they could never have imagined, and yet, they never paused long enough to truly understand the significance of this man's quiet presence. They barely noticed him at all. After all, there were more pressing things to attend to: important business meetings, family gatherings, and urgent appointments. Time was a commodity they could not afford to waste. Yet, the man on the bench continued to sit there, every single day, his smile unwavering as the seasons changed, as the years passed. And then, one cold, overcast morning, something strange happened. A man named Elias, a traveler with a long coat and weary eyes, trudged through the station, his shoulders hunched under the weight of an invisible burden. His life had been full of unexpected losses and painful separations, and he was at the point of breaking. He was just another stranger passing through, absorbed in his thoughts and consumed by the disarray of his personal world. His face was pale, his movements stiff, and his mind seemed to be on autopilot as he moved with the crowd, his eyes never meeting those around him. But then, as he walked past the bench where the attendant sat, something changed. The station attendant's eyes met Elias's, and for the briefest of moments, the man's gentle smile seemed to cut through the fog of Elias's despair. It wasn't just a polite smile, as one might give when meeting a stranger. It was something more. It was an unspoken invitation to pause, to acknowledge the human connection that was present, despite all the hurt that filled Elias's heart. For a moment, Elias hesitated, unsure of why this man's smile had such an effect on him. It was the first time in a long time that he had felt seen, truly seen. The weight on his shoulders momentarily lifted, and his breath seemed to catch in his throat. There was no reason for it, no explanation for the way that smile seemed to crack open the floodgates of his emotions. It was just a smile, after all, but it felt like more. "Thank you," Elias whispered under his breath, though the attendant had already turned his gaze back to the tracks, his quiet presence unchanged. Days passed, and Elias continued to visit the station on his way to work, always glancing at the bench where the attendant sat. Sometimes he would catch the man's gaze, and the same warm, silent smile would appear. Elias couldn't explain it, but each time, it was as if something inside him was healing. He had been running from his pain for so long, burying it deep, trying to keep it under control. But with each passing day, he found himself starting to let it go. It wasn't just the smile, though. It was the stillness of the man. The way he didn't rush, didn't look at his watch or check his phone. He simply existed in the moment, offering nothing more than his presence. Elias realized that the attendant wasn't just smiling for the sake of politeness. He was offering a connection, a small but profound gift. The kind of gift that could change the course of a life. Then one evening, a storm descended upon the city. The wind howled through the streets, the rain coming down in sheets. Elias hurried to catch his usual evening train, the dampness of the storm seeping into his coat as he walked through the platform. It was nearly deserted. Most of the commuters had sought shelter from the rain, and the station was quiet, almost eerie. When Elias passed the bench, He was startled to see the attendant still there, sitting calmly in the downpour, his clothes soaked but his smile still there, unwavering as ever. "Why do you do this?" Elias asked, his voice cracking with the vulnerability he had kept hidden for so long. The attendant didn't answer, didn't even move. He simply sat there, offering Elias nothing but that smile. It was as if the man had been waiting for this moment, the moment when the walls Elias had so carefully built around himself would finally crumble. The storm raged on, but Elias felt an inexplicable warmth, as if the world itself had paused to listen. And then it came, the moment of clarity. The weight he had carried for years, the sorrow, the regret, the bitterness, it was all starting to dissolve. For the first time in so long, he felt a sense of peace. That night, after the storm subsided, Elias made a promise to himself. He would no longer be afraid of feeling. He would no longer hide from the pain, from the things he had buried deep inside. He had been so focused on surviving that he had forgotten how to truly live. And now, in the presence of this quiet man and his gentle smile, Elias understood something that had eluded him for so long. Healing didn't come from running away. It came from allowing yourself to face the darkness, to let go of the past, and to embrace the possibility of change. Years passed, and Elias's life slowly transformed. The pain that had once defined him began to fade, replaced by a sense of quiet strength. He never forgot the station attendant, and every time he passed through the old station, he would glance at the bench where the man had once sat. But one day, when he arrived, the bench was empty. The attendant was gone. There were no announcements, no fanfare. It was as if the man had never existed at all. It wasn't until years later, long after the attendant had disappeared, that Elias learned the truth. He had been walking through the station one afternoon when an older man, a stranger, stopped him. "You don't know me, but I know you," the man said. "You're the one who spoke to him that stormy night." Elias frowned, trying to place the voice. "Who are you talking about?" "The station attendant," the man said. "The one who smiled at everyone." Elias's heart skipped a beat. "You knew him?" "Not many people knew him, but I did," the man said, his eyes distant. He was a special person. In fact, he was more than just a man. He was a reminder, a symbol of something greater. He didn't speak because he didn't need to. His smile was all the communication he needed to offer. The stranger paused, looking at Elias intently. "Do you know why he was always there?" Elias shook his head, a mix of confusion and curiosity clouding his thoughts. "Because he was a traveler, too," the man said softly. "A traveler who had already crossed many paths. He was a part of the world's fabric, guiding others without ever saying a word. His purpose was to help people like you, Elias. People who were lost, people who needed to be reminded that there is always hope, even when it seems the darkest." The stranger's words lingered in the air as he walked away, leaving Elias standing in the middle of the station, a flood of emotions washing over him. It all clicked: the smile, the stillness, the quiet connection. The attendant had been more than just a fixture at the station. He had been a reminder that sometimes the most profound moments of healing come not from words, but from simple acts of kindness. Elias would never forget the station attendant and the gift of his silent smile. He had learned that sometimes it's the smallest things that make the biggest impact. A smile could be the difference between despair and hope, between darkness and light. And with that realization, Elias found himself smiling, too. A smile that was no longer just for himself, but for everyone he would meet along the way. And so, the cycle continued. The silent smile was passed from one soul to another, spreading like a quiet ripple in a vast ocean, changing lives in ways that no one could ever fully understand. The attendant, in his simple and quiet way, had left a legacy that would live on for generations, a legacy of hope, of healing, and of the power of human connection. As Elias boarded his train, his heart light and his spirit renewed, he knew that he had been given a gift far greater than any material possession. The gift of a smile, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of light. And with that, he knew that he, too, would carry that light forward, sharing it with others, just as the station attendant had done for him all those years ago.
Whispering echoes.